Hello, my friends. I figured maybe it would be a little bit nicer to introduce your lessons this way, where you're maybe feeling like you're in the art room and I'm standing in front of you, like you're sitting at your table and I'm at the front of the classroom and the whiteboard's behind me, except it's not really, but that's okay. We can pretend. But I will do my best in this video to at least explain the instructions to you. The piece of art that we're creating, some of you already got a little insight to it last week if you joined a conference. It's going to be inspired by Piet Mondrian. He was a French artist, and he was working in the early 1900s, and a lot of his early paintings are trees and nature, but then he found ways to make those things more simplified. Basically bring everything down to simple lines. They were horizontal and vertical, very few diagonals, and all the primary colors, which, if you think about it, is the early building blocks of all of our artwork. If you go back to elementary school, we used simple line, primary colors, and geometric shapes. So right now what I'm going to do is show you some of his work and show you how we're going to create a piece of art inspired by his work. We'll be using Sketchbook as your medium. If you wanted to do something else, that's okay. Some people have used tape for this project to lay down tape strips. You could cut paper. You could certainly draw it with a ruler and pencil. You could use markers. It's really up to you, but the way I'm teaching it is digitally because I know you all have access to your iPads. I'm always open to your ideas and interpretations though, so please don't hesitate if you have some other ideas, and if you want to run those by me first, that's totally okay too. All right, so now we're going to take you on a quick little journey of his art, and then I'm going to show you how you're going to create your own work inspired by his, and that's it. All right, so let's shift some gears here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to show you is the evolution of his art. And here you can see on the very top left a painting of a tree that he did, again, in the early 1900s. So this is like somewhere in the 1900 to 1940 range he was creating. And what you're going to notice as the trees move across on the top row is they become more and more abstract. This is a word you've heard me mention several times in the art room, and abstraction is exactly what you're seeing here. He really kind of invented abstract art. He was one of the pioneers of this movement. And what it does is it kind of morphs and twists and bends something that we know, something we recognize, and makes it a little harder to recognize, a little harder to identify. And as you can see in the second row, they've become like a total abstraction of a tree. But that was sort of his intention and his purpose, was to take something as complicated or everyday or recognizable as a tree and bring it down to its most simple ingredients or form, which is line, shape, and color. And here you're looking at a piece of art that he created a little later in his career, and it was called Broadway Boogie Woogie, and this was inspired by New York City. I am sure if you're looking at it, you can start to identify some things that may represent cities. I'm sure you're seeing maybe streets or buildings or cars, and that's again exactly what his intention was. Here I'm just showing you some of his artwork in a museum setting, just so you can sort of see it in context. Here's another one that I think is kind of interesting because it's painted on an angle like this in a diamond shape, which is something you could consider. And that's that same piece of art, but being hung professionally in a museum. Just again, for context, so you can actually see the real size of that piece of art. And here are some ways that his artwork has influenced other things in our culture. Shoes definitely have been made, and dresses with his art style. There you're seeing some Legos, the Google logo. That's him down in the lower right corner. There's some furniture, and people painted their cars in his style, phone cases, even buildings and products. So what I'm showing you here is a piece of art that I made in Sketchbook inspired by Mondrian. You can see the black line motif, and you can obviously see the primary colors. In mine, I decided it would be fun to introduce some kind of pop art elements using words with shadows. This is another one that I've created that's completely gone off in a very different direction. But again, you're seeing those similar characteristics. the horizontal and vertical lines, intersecting and intercepting, and forming shapes. And again here, almost more like a stained glass. And what I did in this one, you can probably tell, I don't know if you can tell, but I actually made one and I repeated it 4 times. And in Sketchbook, I created 4 separate layers and pieced them together so it made this symmetrical design. And with every single one of them, I just changed the color. And so these are just, again, all examples that I've created. So now I'm going to go in and show you how to make one. Okay, so we're in Sketchbook and we want to get a new sketch. So tap on the plus sign on the bottom, new sketch. If you go into presets, it will give you some options. I always pinch just a little bit so I can see what I like to call the table, which is that gray space behind it. I'm going to go ahead and find black. So now I have black selected, and I'm going to go up to the top toolbar and select the one that looks like a circle and a square intersecting. And I'm going to choose the square tool, or it's actually the rectangle tool. And now I'm going to use my finger and I'm going to draw, starting on the gray table area, and I'm going to cross down and again connecting to the gray table area so that I'm making a rectangle that would, if you were thinking about this like paper, I'm laying down a strip of paper that's longer than the paper itself. And I'm going to put it right there and leave it. And what that did is it created an outline of that line. Now if I wanted it to be a solid, I could grab the paint bucket tool and tap inside of there and it would fill it with black. So I'm going to keep repeating this process, but I'm not going to keep filling, like drawing and filling. I'll draw a bunch and then fill. Okay, so again, I'm going to grab that rectangle tool and create a line. I want you to experiment with different widths. So that's a really skinny line. Maybe a wider one here. And don't intersect every single one of them. Remember, an intersection would cross over and go past that line. An interception, just like in football, is when it goes to the hands and doesn't go past. It's going to stop right there. Okay? So again, I'm going to show you how to fill those areas. All right. So I've only made technically three lines so far, right? They're all different widths. They're in different parts of the composition. What you want to also avoid is having this look like a window, like the even panes, so, you know, all the same size, all the same width. You want to try to get some interesting shapes. So if you look right now, I've got, you know, a really skinny white rectangle on the right and a really long skinny rectangle on the top. Over on the left, I have that tiny little white rectangle. So I'm changing up the size here. All right, so I'm going to keep going. You want to avoid doing this as well, not putting anything straight in the middle because that's not good for composition. You could do it over here, I suppose. But I would, rather than go right in the middle, drop down or up a little bit. There's a rule that artists use where they rely on thirds instead of halves, and that makes a composition more interesting if you kind of go third of the way instead of half of the way. I'm going to fill this and see how it looks. You might like the way this looks. I don't know if you can notice here, but where the shapes actually are intersecting, it leaves these little white rectangles. I'm going to get rid of mine, but you might like to keep them there. That's pretty interesting design because we've got some nice varying widths, varying lengths, and the shapes themselves are, you know, pretty unique. And be careful when you're filling these areas because if you don't zoom in, sometimes you miss and you fill a whole space. All right, so I'm pretty content with this. What I'm going to show you next is how to change the size and position of this composition. So right now this is in one layer. Okay, you can see it on the far right. And I'm going to tap on the four-way arrow tool up at the top. And what I can do with this one layer that I just created is pinch with my fingers. So I'm just pinching in. I know you can't see my fingers, but I kind of held on to the art and pinched And now I can turn it and place it somewhere new. So something like that might be nice. Okay, now I'm gonna go back, say done, and I'm gonna tap on that layer, and I'm going to go to the top right and duplicate that layer. So now there's 2 of them. I'm gonna take that second one, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm gonna transform by moving it. I can make it bigger and place it wherever I want. So what I've done is I've taken that original design and I'm now breaking it up into multiples and rearranging it so that I make an even more interesting composition. So again, tap on that new layer, or you can even tap on the first one again and duplicate, tap on it, duplicate, go into that duplicated layer with the 4-way arrow. You're going to pinch, move, and decide where you want to put it. All right, I've got one more to do, so I'm actually just going to duplicate the one I just did and 4-way arrow it and move it, twist it, and just pop it up top here. Perfect. I love it. Nope, actually, I'm going to move that down just a little bit. Okay, now everything's connected. All right, so now I'm done, and I really like this composition, and I want to make all 4 of these come together as one design, okay? Because if I start trying to fill in, let me just take a color for a minute and show you what I mean. If I start filling in, right now it's only reading that new layer. It's not seeing all of them combined together. I'm going to undo that, and what I'm going to do is tap on the topmost layer, and I'm going to tap on it again, and I'm going to do merge all. So it's on the second row, third over, merge all. And what that did is it made all 4 of those layers into one layer. It sandwiched them together. So now if I were to go ahead and move it, it's all one piece. And I'm going to start filling. So I'm going to pick a color theme. You can stick with primary colors. For mine, I guess that's what I'll do just for the sake of demonstration. But you really could play with all kinds of color themes. I'm going to grab that paint bucket tool, and I'm going to start filling in some of these shapes. And stick with one color for a little while. That way you don't have to keep changing. All right, now I'm going to grab a yellow. And notice I'm placing them kind of all around. This is an art called balance. You want to create a sense of balance in your art so that your eye moves around the whole thing. If I put too much red in one area or too much yellow in one area, then your eye's going to focus on that area. But this really, oops. This is the nice part about Sketchbook. You can undo. Anyway, this helps your eye move around the canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and get my blue. I really can't stress this enough. You do not need to use primary colors. But I'm just showing you a piece that would be 100% inspired by his work. And you just keep going until you love it. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for now. And then I'm going to show you some other little tricks. So one thing you could do, if you saw in one of my earlier ones I filled with pattern, you can go to the selection tool up top. It looks like a little dashed rectangle with an arrow pointing into the right corner. And you're going to grab the third tool over, which looks like almost like a needle with an oval. It's the magic wand tool. And you're going to select an area. So let's say I want to select this white box right here. I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but there's a tiny little dotted line that's showing that I selected that area. Now I'm going to scroll down to this pattern tool. That's going to make some polka dots, and I want to change the color to black. And I'm going to fill this area with black polka dots. Okay, so I'll show you again. You get the magic wand tool, and you're going to select an area. And then you're going to get that pattern tool and fill. Okay, so you can even do that on top of color. So let's say I wanted to do white polka dots on top of a red rectangle. Then I can go ahead and grab the white and do the similar effect. So that's an option. The other thing you can do is just add other shapes. So maybe you want to add some circles, for instance. If you ever want to match a color, you can, let me show you that again. So you tap on the color and then grab that little eyedropper and slide it to a color you want to match. And now I'm going to get that circle tool and I'm going to make a series of circles. Oops. I did not deselect. You have to remember to deselect. That's one of the pains about that. So there's a tool right here with a red X. Make sure you tap on that, because if you don't, it's going to stay in that area you selected and not do anything else. So make sure you deselect. Ah! And also change your brush. I'm going to go back to the pencil tool here and not the polka dot tool. Let me try that one more time. Okay, now we're cooking. So now it's starting to get interesting. You don't want to get too busy, I don't think, but I don't know. I kind of like this part where you're starting to play with things a little bit more and making it your own. If you wanted to add words, you could do that. You could add your name. You could do a little nod to Mondrian. So let's say I want to change the color of the entire thing. First of all, I'm going to flatten all my layers, so merge all. And now I'm going to tap on that layer. And if you look here, there's color balance and HSL adjustment on the bottom row. I'm going to play with the color balance. So this should, in theory, it's not doing a heck of a lot. Hang on. Actually, you might just do HSL adjustment. Yeah, that's it. Don't do color balance. Okay, so HSL adjustment. So that plays with all of your colors, which is pretty fun. And I could change that one to a new color motif. So I'm going to go to that HSL adjustment again and play with the color there. And then I can do that again. And again, you can adjust the colors on that layer. I really just want to show you all the different things that you can do with the available tools. You know, there's a lot of different stuff to explore. And I always encourage you to try different things. I hate to show you these videos because sometimes I feel like you guys lock into my ideas, and the last thing I want is to get in the way of your creativity. So please, please, please just try to do your own thing. Take some chances, you know, that's really what it's all about. There's just so much you can do with this. I'm going to show you how to save this. So now that it's all one layer, I'm going to get my 4-way arrow. I'm going to pull out just a little bit so that it has a frame around it. Grab your text tool, you can put your name. And that's pretty much it. So when you are done, you're going to want to save this image. But first I would merge all of your layers, and then you're going to go to the top left button and go to your gallery and choose Save Current Sketch. All right, there it is. So now on the bottom right hand side, you tap on that bottom right little rectangle with the 3 lines in the right hand corner, go to Share, Save Image. Now that image is in your photos. Okay, so there it is right there, and that's what you would upload to Schoology. All right, my dears, if you have any questions about any of this, please let me know. Do your thing. Make sure you make it your own. Have fun with it. Good luck. Thank you. Bye.